Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into the Sports Shore Network. My guest today is Kevin Williams. He is the director of the Shore Sports Network, and welcome to the show.
Anthony, thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests, Kevin, where you went to college. So where'd you go to school?
Well, I guess you could say I did the alternative method to getting into my vocation. After graduating from high school and sort of not sure where and what I wanted to do, I ended up at Ocean County College, which is supposed to be a two-year school. I said supposed to be. I spent a little more than 2 years there, and I will admit I didn't have a lot of direction. I would start the semester as a full-time student. Halfway through, I was down to a part-time student. I remember trying to explain to my parents that when I got a report card, the W didn't mean withdrawal, it meant Williams. And it took them a semester or two to realize I was lying. But in all honesty, I was not very mature. I think like a lot of kids, unfortunately, who go to college, which is why I've learned to become a bigger fan of the junior college system if you're not ready, especially in today's economic world we live in. But I did get some great direction at Ocean County College. While there, I was the sports editor of the college newspaper. Sports has always been my passion my entire life. I was the public address announcer for the men's basketball game, so I announced all their home basketball games. I was dabbling in a little cable TV on the side, and again, sort of a mishmash of things. And in my third year of OCC, and again, as I said, it's a two-year college. In my third year, when I wasn't even close to finishing up there, the president of the college one day picked us up hitchhiking during a snowstorm from the main entrance to go into the gymnasium. And we got into a conversation, and he asked me about my education. I couldn't lie to him because I knew he could find out. So I said to him, I kind of fessed up, and he said, it sounds to me like you're a guy who would be best off maybe going to some kind of vocational school for what you want to do. And broadcasting was my passion. We're talking about like 1976, 77. There's no internet, right? So literally you get a thick book of all the vocational schools, and you take a shot that the ones that are listed are actually still in business. I ended up at a broadcasting school in Philadelphia called the American Academy of Broadcasting. I borrowed what I needed to go there. I had to obviously leave home. I ended up living outside of Philadelphia with a friend of mine who had been a college buddy during my OCC days. I took the train into school every day, and I took it serious. And for 6 months, and you take it serious when it's your own dime, because my parents told me, hey, you're on your own dime now. So even though it wasn't a lot of money by today's standards, at then it was. And now I'm paying rent in an apartment. And, my joke used to be, I eat hamburger helper. It just doesn't have hamburger in it. But the most important thing, Anthony, was I grew up. I got serious. I worked very hard at it. And by the time the 6 months was over, I was already gainfully employed in radio. Literally finished up on a Friday there. On Monday, I was working full time. And I guess the rest you say is history. Now, sure, if I could do it all over again, I would do the more traditional way of doing things. And there are still some vocational schools like the Connecticut School of Broadcasting, which people have done very well at. But the majority of people in the communications world, and I say communications because it's changed so dramatically from what I started in, do it the traditional way. They go to a 4-year school, they end up with a 4-year degree, they've majored in communications, and they've probably dabbled in a whole bunch of different things, from broadcasting to digital to all of that, the world we live in today.
Sure. So you graduate and you get into broadcasting. How does one become the director of the Shore Sports Network?
Yeah, so I start in 1978 at another radio station in my market, Ocean County, New Jersey. I'm writing commercial copy, which is what it sounds like. You write the 30 and 60-second commercials for local businesses half the day, and the other half I'm doing news. which again is not what I want to do. I want to be a sports guy. I think I'm going to be the next Marv Albert or something like that, you know? So I do that for a few months. Eventually, I become a full-time news person and start doing a daily 5-minute sports report towards the end of the day, like 6:30 at night. And one day after just actually less than a year, the manager of another local radio station, which was the top station in the market, approaches me, you know, and says, would you be interested in working for us? And I said, look, I'm very happy. I'm making $140 a week, which, you know, I thought was good. I was living at home. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have rent. I was okay. But they said, well, we're looking to hire our first ever full-time sports person. Well, I got to listen now. And they basically crafted a position which intrigued me to the point where I accepted it. Started at 175 a week, another big bump now. I'm rolling now. And, you know, to say the rest is history, you know, that was July of 1979 when I started at what was WOBM radio, 92.7 FM. I have been there ever since in some capacity, although our business has changed so much. I mean, when I started working there, the people who owned it owned one FM radio station. That was it. Then they operated an AM station. And then they sold to a group that had 10 stations. And then they sold to a group that had 20. And now I work for Town Square Media, who has well over 300 radio stations, websites, and other properties all across the country. But I've always been a part of WOBM. I was the morning show co-host for many years. I did sports for many years. I still have a role there now. But where we are, and again, the way the whole business model radio has changed so dramatically. I mean, listen, I started when the disc jockeys put records on turntables, which you might remember. Some of the people watching have no idea what I'm talking about. And you played records on turntables. And it was, you know, then it went from records to 8 tracks and went from 8 tracks to CDs. And now you operate touch-tone computer screens. You'd almost never know you're in a radio studio, to be honest. Used to be posters and on the walls and all that stuff, and a lot of that has changed. But several years ago, Town Square, who I work for, they were way ahead and remain way ahead when it came to digital space. They saw where things were going in the communications world, and that, when you do something on radio and you say, well, you know, you can listen at 5, 6, and 7 o'clock, that means the listener has to listen at 5, 6, and 7 o'clock. And Anthony, I call it the ATM mentality. We don't want things when you tell us. We want things whenever we want to get it. Yep. And what digital does is it's there. You get it when you want to get it. You know, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and you want the score of a Yankee or Met game, you go on your smartphone, you pull it up and you get the score. In the old days, you used to have to wait till the morning to read it in the paper, or maybe watch it on the newscast, and that doesn't happen anymore. But a few years ago, being way ahead of the bar when it comes to digital, we created this thing called the Shore Sports Network. And in essence, we cover the 48 high schools that make up Monmouth and Ocean County in New Jersey. 48, it's one of the bigger conferences. It's the Shore Conference. We cover all the schools that make up the Shore Conference. And, you know, if you can think of a map that goes from about exit 124 north to exit 57 south, it covers a pretty wide variety. But, that's what we do. We're sort of like the morning newspaper, where if you get up in the morning, you can go on our website, shoresportsnetwork.com. If you're interested to find out what happened in high school baseball the day and night before, you click on that. We have all the scores. We have highlights. We do the same with boys lacrosse. What we do, I'd love to cover every sport, but the reality is we're in a numbers-driven business, and numbers tell us that the most important sports for viewers and sponsors for us, football and soccer in the fall, basketball and wrestling in a traditional winter season, baseball and lacrosse in the spring. We try and dabble in some of the other ones. We just don't have the kind of resources to cover everything. But we've built up a really a nice website, a great relationship. We do some print products as well. We do some broadcasting via streaming. And in essence, the beauty of us is if it's not in Ocean or Monmouth County, we really don't care about it. You know, we're okay to say this is what we are. This is what we cover. And that's it. You know, we leave the others to, other different sources.
And do you do anything individually for student athletes that are playing? Do you cover them and do maybe a story on them or something?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the student athlete is our most important person, not just for them because of their parents. You know, our largest age group demographic that goes on our website is 45 to 54 year olds, which we basically assume is the parents of most athletes. And I can tell you from the emails I get, if you want to get attention, misspell an athlete's name, right? Or make a mistake or identify something, they're not the ones who reach out to you. It's mom or dad who sends you the email. You know, Anthony Uva was 3 for 4 yesterday, not 2 for 4. Can you please correct? But we do things we do in all the sports we cover. We honor a team each week as our team of the week. We have a tremendous partnership with Jersey Mike's, who's been our charter sponsor since we started. So, for example, baseball every week, we honor a baseball team we pick as the team of the week. We go out to their practice or one of their games. We present them with $200 in Jersey Mike's gift cards for a team meal, a plaque, and things like that. We also, each week, we do an athlete of the week in all our core sports, which is voted on by people. We put up some nominees. We let the public vote for a couple of days. And then we honor, it's an athlete of the baseball player of the week, the lacrosse player of the week. They get a gift card often from us, $25 gift card from a local restaurant or food place. And so it's all about the athlete to us. And right now, as we sit here in May, we work in close relationship with the 48 high schools that make up the Shore Conference, and we call it the Shore Conference Sportsmanship Awards. Every school honors a male and female senior that the school picks as their sportsman who best represents the ideals of good sportsmanship. Not only do we put it on our website, we put together a large print program, full color program, pictures of all the honorees, a little bio on what they've done in their high school career, where they're going to college if they've made decisions. So to us, you know, there's nothing more important than the student athlete. That's what it's all about. We try and tell their stories.
Yeah, that's great. So the Shore Sports Network, it basically you have reporters that are streaming these things right at the games. And
what we do, and again, I'd love to have 20 people at my beck and call, but we're also living, let's face it, we suffered significantly during the pandemic. No games, nothing to write about, no sponsors. So it's just starting to come back. The spring season for high school sports in New Jersey is the first normal season, or as close to normal as possible, in which they're going to go all the way to the end. In the latter part of June, they're going to have local tournaments. They're going to have state tournaments, of which there have been none since March of 2020. What we do is we have, in addition to myself, and I have an assistant who does a lot of our graphics and our print work. We have 2 full-time writers, reporters. Each of them is assigned a sport, and they basically live that sport for that season. So Bob Batters is our lacrosse guy. Matt Manley is our baseball guy. They're fully ingrained with all 48 schools that play that sport. They provide daily scoreboards. They handle every element with that sport. In addition, obviously, to breaking news involving other sports, which can happen at any time. A football coach can be hired, then we've got to jump on that as well. But so we do have the 2 full-time guys who are both longtime journalists in this area. They know the game, they know the teams, they know the players. You know, the biggest criticism we get, and I'm not ashamed to admit it, is, hey, why don't you cover more? I would love to, but I just don't have the personnel, and our experience that we've done from the past tells us you can't just cover something once in a while. If you say you cover that sport, you can't jump in once every 3 weeks. You've really got to live it. So we live what we say we are, and it's not perfect, but that's what we do.
now you said that Town Square owns a lot of other radio stations as well. Does any other part of the state of New Jersey do something similar to what you do?
You know, in terms of our sports thing, I'm kind of like a lone wolf. The company does have sports radio stations, in some cases like ESPN affiliates that are part of their operation, in which they would then have a sports website, but it's probably primarily for the pro sports in that market they would cover. There are some that do high school sports. And in New Jersey, the Town Square model is they are all their radio stations are in small and medium markets. They have no interest in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, LA. Where they are is, for example, I work out of our Shore Market office in Toms River, and we actually have here, we have 4 FM radio stations in this building, as well as the Shore Sports Network. So there are 5 properties in this building. Our most well-known radio station would be New Jersey 101.5, WKXW. That's a Town Square radio station. Obviously, it's the biggest radio station in the state. We also have a radio station in Princeton that is well-known. And then in South Jersey, we have a group of radio stations, one of which is a sports station, an ESPN affiliate that does some high school work as well. And then again, in terms of the Town Square footprint on a national basis, we have a pretty big market in Albany, New York, but honestly, we're in a lot of places that people never heard of. We're in Tyler, Texas, we're in Michigan, we're all over the country, but the philosophy has always been, we go into small and medium markets, try and be a big player in those markets, and we don't worry, we let the other guys have the big cities.
And how do you survive? All by sponsorship?
I'm happy to say, sometimes not as happy as others, but for example, Shore Sports Network, to my knowledge, in terms of being a content provider in my market and parts of the state, we are the only ones that never charge for anything. Everything we do is absolutely free. We streamed high school football and basketball this season when fans were not allowed to go, except for in some cases parents. So as a public service, we streamed those games. It cost us a significant amount of money, and anyone else who streamed did it on a streaming platform where you had to have a subscription. We do it all based on our sponsors, which is great. It's not so great when you're in a pandemic and your sponsors sort of, take a deep pause. So I'd be a liar if I said that, the last year has been a challenge, but we've had some real stalwarts, and I mentioned Jersey Mike's, which everyone is familiar with. And to be honest with you, we couldn't have survived without them. They are just great partners. They back almost everything we do. They love the idea of honoring student athletes. So we have a great relationship with them. And we have other places like Atlantic Physical Therapy, who have been with us basically since we started 7 years ago. So hopefully as things come back, that will help us not just survive, but thrive. And of course, all our radio stations and websites are obviously, it's all about sponsors and advertisers. And fortunately, we've been very, very successful.
So being so successful in your area, do they have plans of expanding to other counties?
There was some talk initially. It does take a lot of work. And, I would say this, and I'm sure our mutual friend Mark Beal is going to watch this at some point, and I know you've had him as a guest, and he's big shoes to follow. But I'm going to say this: what we have in this market, what they have in this market that most places don't, is me. And I don't mean that from a talent or whatever. I mean that from longevity. I've been in the market for 42 years, covering sports the entire time in some capacity. So, I know where all the bodies are buried. I have a relationship with all the athletic directors. Someone new trying to start that, it's a daunting task. And it is not necessarily financially a slam dunk. It's a process that takes time. So I don't know that, I couldn't tell you what's happening in Texas or Louisiana and whether they have stations there or groups there that might want to do something like that. That I don't know. But let's put it this way. I'm on the 15th fairway. So it's a little late in my career for them to have me start something in some group in Louisiana. Those days are gone. Let me just try and make what we have here the very best we can be.
Great. So students from high school, do they contact you? Do you get a lot of information from parents of what's going on? Where's there a big game, or do the schools just contact you?
I'd like to tell you the 2 reporters I have are so good. They know. They absolutely know what's the big game, what's not. Most of the parent feedback is unwanted. Unwanted. It's what I told you. It's you did something wrong. You spelled my son's name wrong. This was the wrong information. A lot of the information we get on games, and especially ones we're not at, come from coaches. So like my whole thing is, listen, your coach told us he had 2 hits, not 3. What would you like us to do? Question him? And I've always said, Anthony, with over 4 decades in this business, parents are terrible talent evaluators. They all think their kid is a Division I athlete, and a superstar. And when they go, when it's their kid, they completely lose all perspective. And listen, a lot of them are very talented, but we actually do most of it on our own. We do work closely with the schools, with the coaches especially. We try not to depend too much on the information from parents or athletes because very often it's slanted. You sort of got to get it from a credible source. So, that's what we do. I do want to add, and I think this is important for what you do, in that internships. In the good old days, which would be pre-March of 2020, and hopefully will be again soon. We always sought to work with mostly college kids on internship programs. Our company does have internship programs for college credit. Unfortunately, that was impossible. And as we sit here right now, we are not doing any internships because what's an internship? It's supposed to be a teaching and learning experience. And I know we've all become familiar with Zoom, but Zoom is not the end all for everything. Sometimes you just got to be sitting there with a young man or woman and try and, show them the ropes as opposed to tell them the ropes. So, but that's something I always tell all these, especially kids graduating high school, they'll come to me and say, I'm going to, and I'd like to major in communications, very popular field, right? Communications, broadcasting, journalism, any of it, the digital aspect. And I tell them all the same thing. It used to be, they would tell you, do an internship between your junior and senior year. And I am no longer, I don't advocate that. I tell them, if you can do an internship between your freshman and sophomore year, your sophomore and junior, and your juniors, the more the merrier. And it may not always work out financially because it may be an internship that there's no compensation and you need to work, and you certainly understand that. But to me, internships are everything. And what sometimes breaks my heart, and you probably have been through this, and I know Mark had, is when you get someone who's a graduating senior and says to you, hey, I'm graduating in May, I'm looking for an internship. I've never done one. And I always say to them, you don't do the internship after you graduate. You want to do it while you're still in school. You get college credit for, and hopefully it puts you in position, if you shine, maybe to have a job lined up when you graduate. And I think too many young people still miss that boat about the value of internships.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kevin, we're coming to the end of our show. And
how can that be? We just started.
Yeah, right. And usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to student athletes watching this, parents watching it? What advice do you want to give them?
Well, and I think it ties in with college. We all know the cost of college, obviously, in some cases today is just exorbitant. And there are some people who are in position, their family can write a check, and that's great. But there are a lot of others that go into considerable debt to get a college education. And I'm not telling you it's not worth it because, there is certainly tremendous value. However, I think everyone's an individual. And to me, I've always said with this, parents are sometimes hung up on their kid getting a Division I scholarship. It sounds good. They want to tell their friends, Johnny is going to Penn State, Mary is going to Notre Dame. And I know it sounds great. I would love to have been in that position with my children. The reality is, if sports can help you get into a college, one that fits what you want to do, and it gives you that leg up, and maybe you get a little money for athletics and a little money for academics. There is a lot more money in the college world for academics than there will ever be for athletics. As a friend of mine once said, stop chasing the scholarship. Go to the SAT or ACT instructor who can help get your grades up enough points that you'll get where you want to go. So I always say this, don't get caught up. Go to a place that fits you. If you're one that says, I want to go somewhere as a freshman where I can play right away, You got to go down to a Division III school. That's great, because sitting on a bench at a Division I program may make you miserable. And a lot of those men and women end up transferring at some point. So there's a place for everyone. And if athletics is important and you want to play somewhere, you can find a place. Just find a place that fits your comfort zone and don't get caught up in the name.
Yeah, very good. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, Kevin.
Anthony, it's my pleasure. You do a great public service for the viewers in your area. And listen, college is a very hot topic. We know that. And anytime you can give information that may be valuable, it's a home run.
Thank you very much. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.